Strait of Hormuz is still closed. We will open it by the order of our leader, Imam Khamenei, not by the tweets of some idiot.
We're talking to them. They wanted to close up the strait again.
Transportation of oil has been slowed down, not because of us, because of the attacks and aggression made by Israelis and Americans against us.
Saudi Arabia has its own bypass pipeline going from Al-Qaik on the Persian Gulf to Yanbu on the Red Sea.
Iran thought it had the perfect weapon: close the Strait of Hormuz, strangle the global economy, force the world to its knees, make America beg for a deal. That was the plan. And for a moment, it worked. The Strait of Hormuz closed to international shipping on February 28, 2026, the same day the US and Israel launched Operation Epic Fury, with tanker traffic dropping by 70% almost immediately and then falling to effectively zero. 20% of the world's oil supply gone. Brent crude spiked above $126 per barrel, the largest energy disruption since the 1970s oil crisis. Iran had broken the global economy in a single move. But then something happened that Tehran never calculated. The UAE, a country Iran had been bombarding with 537 ballistic missiles, 2,256 drones, and 26 cruise missiles, did not collapse, did not beg, did not back down. Instead, Abu Dhabi revealed weapons, pipelines, and a military coalition that Iran did not know existed. And now the Hormuz trap is slowly, systematically being dismantled from the inside. Before we reveal exactly what six-layer air defense system the UAE built in secret that achieved a 96% interception rate against Iran's most sophisticated weapons, how the UAE's secret pipeline, running 380 kilometers underground, completely bypassed the Hormuz blockade and started pumping oil directly to the Arabian Sea, why the South Korean Cheonggung-2 missile system that nobody knew the UAE had is now being called the biggest air defense revelation of the war, what happened when the UAE formally declared it would join the US military effort to force Hormuz open, and what Iran threatened in response, how the UAE is currently exporting 1.62 million barrels per day, without passing through the strait Iran thought it controlled, and what happens next when America's naval blockade combines with UAE firepower to permanently end Tehran's Hormuz strategy. Subscribe and hit that bell. Because what the UAE just revealed in the Strait of Hormuz isn't just a military story. It is the story of how a small Gulf nation built a secret arsenal powerful enough to make Iran's most devastating weapon, the Hormuz blockade, start falling apart. We connect it, right now. Here's what Iran threw at the UAE, and why the numbers should have destroyed it. Iran launched a multi-day series of missile and drone airstrikes on the UAE, beginning at 12:53 p.m. on February 28, 2026, the same hour Operation Epic Fury began. Immediate, simultaneous, deliberate. As of April 1st, 2026, Iran had fired a total of 438 ballistic missiles, 2,012 drones, and 19 cruise missiles at targets in the UAE alone, according to the UAE Ministry of Defense, more than what Tehran fired at Israel in the same period. Iran hit Dubai International Airport. It hit Al Dhafra Air Base housing US forces. It hit French naval base Camp de la Paix in Abu Dhabi. It struck an Amazon Web Services data center. It hit the Jebel Ali port, the largest port in the Middle East. It lit fires across Abu Dhabi's Corniche district. Think about what Iran expected to happen. A city of 10 million people under sustained ballistic missile bombardment, flames visible from space, oil infrastructure burning, port operations halted, civilians fleeing, the UAE suing for peace. That was Tehran's calculation, and it was wrong. As of March 1st, 2026, the UAE had achieved a 95% interception rate, destroying all threatening cruise missiles that breached its territory and 94% of notoriously difficult drones, according to Semaphore. By any global standard, rivaling Israel's Iron Dome. 13 people killed across weeks of bombardment, not thousands. 13. In a country absorbing more incoming fire than Israel. How? Because the UAE had been building something in secret that nobody, including Iran, fully understood until the missiles started flying. Here is the secret weapon, and why it has 6 layers that China's own engineers are now studying. The UAE operates a 6-layer air defense architecture. American THAAD, intercepting ballistic missiles at 150 plus kilometers altitude, Patriot batteries as the second layer, Israel's Barak 8 system at medium range covering aircraft and cruise missiles with a 70-kilometer engagement envelope, South Korea's Cheonggung-2 for medium altitude threats, Russia's Pantsir S-1 combining 30mm cannons and short-range missiles for drone swarms, and finally the Sky Knight, a system developed entirely by the UAE's own Edge Group. 6 layers: American, Israeli, South Korean, Russian, and homegrown Emirati, all simultaneously active, all networked together. Think about what Sky Knight means. Sky Knight is a purely Emirati technology developed by the Edge Group, the UAE's own defense conglomerate, representing the final layer of the defense architecture when all other systems have been exhausted. A small Gulf nation with no military-industrial tradition built its own air defense weapon from scratch and deployed it in a live war against Iranian swarms. The world did not know this weapon existed at combat scale until the missiles started falling on Dubai. But the real secret weapon was something nobody expected: a South Korean system making its combat debut. On March 3, 2026, it was confirmed that the Cheonggung-2, also known as KMSAM Block 2, made its combat debut with UAE Air Defense Forces, successfully intercepting Iranian missiles and achieving a reported 96% success rate against a complex swarm of drones and irregular maneuver ballistic missiles. South Korean lawmaker Yoo Yong-weon, a member of the National Assembly Defense Committee, told CNN, "In the recent large-scale complex attack situation involving numerous drones and irregular maneuver ballistic missiles, it is hard to find a case where the overall interception rate exceeded 90%. 90% was considered the global benchmark for excellence. The Cheonggung-2 hit 96. The UAE was the first foreign buyer of the Cheonggung-2 under a multi-billion-dollar deal announced in 2022. And after the war began, South Korea agreed to send additional interceptors to the UAE on an emergency basis after the speed of combat operations burned through missile stocks faster than anticipated. Emergency resupply. Sole airlifting interceptors to Abu Dhabi as fast as they could be manufactured. Because what nobody told Iran before it fired those 2012 drones is that the UAE had bought an air defense system that was essentially built on the DNA of Russia's own S-400. But aimed directly at Iranian weapons. The result across the first 2 weeks of war: 172 ballistic missiles intercepted, 755 drones destroyed, an overall interception rate of 96%, with only 3 deaths and limited damage to civilian or critical infrastructure. 3 deaths, against 438 ballistic missiles and 2012 drones. Iran spent hundreds of millions of dollars on that bombardment. The UAE's shield held. Now here is the pipeline secret, and why it is the most devastating weapon of all. Iran closed the Strait of Hormuz and expected the UAE to suffocate. 20 million barrels per day normally flow through that strait. Iran calculated that the UAE, sitting just 60 miles from its southern coast, would be the most economically vulnerable target, a nation whose entire oil export model depended on the strait it just closed. Except the UAE had already built an exit. The Abu Dhabi crude oil pipeline, a DCOP, runs approximately 380 kilometers from onshore oil facilities at Habshan to the port of Fujairah on the Gulf of Oman, entirely outside the Strait of Hormuz, with a capacity of approximately 1.8 million barrels per day, built in 2012. Cost $4.2 billion, designed for exactly this scenario. When Iran closed Hormuz, the UAE simply turned to a pipeline that runs underground to an ocean Iran cannot reach. Think about what happened to UAE oil exports after the strait closed. Kepler analyst Johannes Raubal confirmed to Reuters that oil exports from Fujairah averaged 1.62 million barrels per day in March 2026, up from 1.17 million barrels per day in February. Oil exports went yup after Iran closed the strait. The UAE was exporting more oil with Hormuz closed than before the war started. Iran closed the door. The UAE walked out of a window it built 14 years ago. But it gets worse for Tehran. Drone attacks struck a fuel storage tank at Fujairah's oil terminal in early March, and debris from a separately intercepted drone caused a fire at the facility. Iran tried to destroy the Hormuz bypass exit too. Iran knew about Fujairah. Iran targeted Fujairah. And even after being struck, ADCOP kept flowing, because the UAE had hardened the infrastructure. built redundancy into every node, and positioned defensive systems around the bypass exit that Iran's missiles could not reliably penetrate. The IEA confirmed the UAE pipeline leaves room for up to 700,000 additional barrels per day of capacity beyond normal use, meaning the UAE is not even at maximum throughput yet. The weapon Iran thought would strangle the UAE is failing, and now the UAE is using that economic survival as political fuel for the next step. Here is what the UAE declared next, and why Iran's Houthi allies issued an immediate threat. On March 18, 2026, the United Arab Emirates formally declared its willingness to join a US-led military effort to secure the Strait of Hormuz, declared publicly. A Gulf state that had been absorbing Iranian missile fire for 3 weeks, standing up and saying, "We will help force it open." A total of 22 countries, including the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Japan, Bahrain, and the UAE, signed a statement declaring their willingness to contribute to efforts to reopen the strait. 22 nations. The coalition Iran claimed could never be assembled in 3 weeks because Iran's missiles hit too many civilian targets across too many countries. Think about what the UAE joining the coalition actually means militarily. According to Breaking Defense, the UAE has been targeted with more than half the number of drones Iran used to attack all other Arab states combined. 1,514 drones targeting UAE out of 2,491 attacking Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, Jordan, and Bahrain combined. The UAE absorbed the worst of it, and its 6-layer air defense network survived. That means the UAE now has combat-tested, battle-hardened missile defense data that no military exercise could replicate. Every Iranian drone tactic, every ballistic missile approach angle, every swarm pattern, the UAE's systems learned from all of it in real time. Iran's response to UAE joining the coalition was instant. The Houthis warned that Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates will be the first to lose in this battle if they joined efforts to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. First to lose. Iran's proxy in Yemen threatening the country, Iran spent 3 weeks failing to destroy with 2,469 projectiles. The threat has a credibility problem. The UAE absorbed all of those attacks. 3 deaths. Pipeline still flowing. Air defense still standing. Coalition joined. One thing is absolutely certain. The UAE intercepted 537 ballistic missiles, 2,256 drone attacks, and 26 cruise missiles fired by Iran, achieving a 96% interception rate across 6-layered defense systems. The Cheonggung 2 made its combat debut on UAE soil and outperformed every global air defense benchmark ever recorded in real combat. The Sky Knight, a purely Emirati-developed weapon, revealed itself to the world for the first time in live warfare. The Abu Dhabi crude oil pipeline exported 1.62 million barrels per day in March 2026, actually increasing exports after Hormuz closed. Iran struck Fujairah directly to close the bypass exit, and failed. The UAE formally joined the US-led coalition to reopen Hormuz on March 18th. 22 nations signed the coalition declaration. Iran's pre-war stockpile assumption of Gulf state interceptors being depleted within days proved wrong. The UAE's multi-system architecture kept absorbing fire and resupplying faster than Iran could calculate. And the Houthis issued threats at the UAE that the UAE's battle-hardened defense network has already proved it can handle. So here is what happens next. Iran closed Hormuz thinking it had found a weapon no one could counter. What it actually found was the proving ground for the UAE's secret arsenal. 6 defense systems from 6 different countries working together at 96% effectiveness, a $4.2 billion underground pipeline that routes oil directly to a sea Iran cannot control, and a government angry enough to join a military coalition to force the strait back open. The blockade that was supposed to break the world is breaking Iran's strategy instead. And Abu Dhabi, a city that was absorbing missile fire while its hotels stayed open, is now one of the architects of what comes next. Stay tuned.